Wind power. Wind power was a footnote in the global energy mix a decade ago. Today, it's about 6% of electricity in the US. That's not a whole lot, but that's a 10x growth in 11 years. Not the sort of thing that normally happens in energy, and that growth continues. Now, that growth was started by policy decisions that wanted to scale this up, but policy alone would not have had an effect anything like this if it were not for the incredible pace of innovation in this sector. Wholesale US electricity prices are around 6 cents a kilowatt hour. In 1980, wind power cost nearly 10 times that. 55 cents. There was no reason to use it in very specialized applications or because of subsidies or mandates or so on. That has changed dramatically. This year, the average price of a new wind power contract in the US will hover around 2 cents per kilowatt hour. Take out all subsidies, that's perhaps 4 cents a kilowatt hour. So this, in windy parts of the world, this is now the cheapest energy you can buy at a 25 times price reduction over the last few decades. That's happening as we build these larger wind turbines that can scale higher, where the wind blows more consistently and more quickly, where as you double the length of a blade, you quadruple the amount of energy it captures. And so as we build these larger turbines, we bring down the price. Enough photons hit the ground that with 1/3% of the world's land area and current technology of solar, we could meet all of the world's energy needs. The issue is not abundance of land or abundance of sun. The issue is and always has been economic. Covering the land, that much land, with solar panels would have cost quadrillions of dollars at one point. But that has changed enormously because of the incredible plunge in solar prices over the last few decades. Since the late 1970s, the cost of 1 watt of solar material has dropped by a factor of 200. That is unlike anything else in physical infrastructure. Transport costs haven't plunged that way. The cost of building buildings hasn't plunged that way. The cost of building factories hasn't plunged that way. This is more like the digital revolution than anything else, and this plunge is continuing. And that means that now in solar, we are also seeing crossover. By crossover, I mean the point at which, in the sunniest parts of the world, with no subsidies, solar is simply the cheapest energy you can buy. Let me show you. In the US, natural gas power is the cheapest sort of ordinary power you can buy, 5 to 6 cents a kilowatt hour. Right? In China, the west of China, the Gobi Desert, the world's largest solar company, Trina, is building a 1 gigawatt plant at about 6 cents a kilowatt hour. Palo Alto in the US signed the cheapest deal in the US late last fall. It was at 3.6 cents. Back out all the subsidies, that's 5.1 cents a kilowatt hour, undercutting the cost of natural gas in the California market. The US solar price, this is the price of actual contracts signed, has plunged by a factor of 5 in the last 8 years. India, one of the sunniest parts of the world, 3.1 rupees is the price of coal electricity. Last month, they signed a deal for 2.97 rupees, 4.5 US cents a kilowatt hour for solar in India, undercutting with no subsidies the cost of coal. Mexico, late last year, power auction, average bid 5.1 cents. The lowest solar bid was from an Italian company, Enel, at 3.5 cents. That's half the price of a natural gas plant in Mexico, unsubsidized. Chile, we've had a dozen cases where power auctions have been swept by solar, with the lowest of those in August last year at 2.91 cents a kilowatt hour. Now, that was not just the cheapest price for solar ever signed, that was the cheapest unsubsidized contract for electricity of any sort on planet Earth with any technology ever in history. All right? That record lasted about 1 month, until in September of last year in Dubai. This is my favorite picture, by the way. This deal was signed, the second tranche of a 1.3 gigawatt plant, at 2.4 cents a kilowatt hour. This is less than half the price of natural gas in the US. It's dramatically lower than the cost of natural gas in the Middle East or Africa. And it wasn't just one company with an unusually aggressive bid. There were 4 companies that came in with bids of less than 3 cents in this auction. 4 companies that came in less than the record low price of a year past. So of course this is regional, right? This is the cheapest energy technology in the sunniest parts of the world. Tony Stark? I hope I didn't give away a secret identity. Elon here is introducing the Tesla Powerwall. They sold, how much of this did they sell in the first week? Anybody remember? About $1 billion in pre-sales in week 1 of this product. And the funny thing is, it's not even a Tesla product or a Tesla product, but it's just Panasonic cells in a Tesla case. So there's not some sudden technological breakthrough that Tesla made. Instead, this is just another one of these areas of exponential progress, that over decades we've seen that there's an exponential trend in battery technologies. Over this 15-year slice of time, the energy capacity of lithium-ion batteries tripled, and the energy cost per unit of energy you could store dropped by a factor of 10. And Tesla simply is tapping into the fact that now this puts it at a low enough price that it is economically viable. And so Tesla is on path for a 5x reduction in battery prices over a period of 5 years, which is faster than any forecaster ever put. So believe in the innovators more than the forecasters is one of my mantras. We've always assumed that clean energy would be the most expensive energy, right? We should do it for moral reasons, cut pollution. But if you look at the ever-declining cost of technology, you start to assume that, hey, if this trend holds, clean energy will ultimately be the cheapest. And even very conservative organizations are now saying this. This is the IEA, International Energy Agency. This is not what you'd call an exponential organization. Okay? I will demonstrate this. Here's the IEA's forecasts for solar over the last 15 years or so. Start from the bottom. That light blue line is the IEA's 2002 forecast for solar. Right? 2004, they said, oh, we're a little bit off, we're going to lift it. 2006 said, we're a little bit off, we're going to lift it. 2008 said, oh, we were way off, we're going to lift it some more. 2010, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Now, that dark blue line is how fast solar actually grew over that time. The red line, 2014, looks a lot more aggressive, right? Who thinks the IEA now has clued in to solar as an exponential growth and that their 2014 forecast is on it? You have no confidence in the world's experts on energy? Well, you shouldn't. You know who the butt of my joke is. The IEA's forecast is actually for linear growth. It projects that every year the world will install the same amount of solar as before, when in fact every year the amount we install is going up by 35 or 40%. Right? But even the IEA says solar will be the largest source of energy by mid-century. The price will be 4 cents a kilowatt hour, undercutting gas and coal, and rooftops will be unbeatable, was the IEA's words. Right? They're not the only ones. UBS put out a report a little over a year ago saying renewables are now deflationary to energy prices. And that's what's true in the US and starting to be true in Europe as well. Well, my favorite of these, AllianceBernstein, private equity firm, they sent out a graph to their clients showing across the bottom here the costs of coal, oil, and gas, longitudinal. And then on the right, what's that gray line? It looks like somebody's kid took a crayon and scrawled across this piece of paper, right? That is the cost of solar dropping in the long term. And the cost of wind is not that dissimilar, and the cost of batteries is following beyond. That's when you zoom out to the long term, 50+ years, that's what you see. And that starts to look a little bit like the sort of disruption we see in other sectors, right? Digital cameras sucked initially, poor quality, high cost, and then eventually they disrupt this whole market. And we see disruption starting to happen. Peabody Coal, the largest private coal company in the world, right, epic scale, went bankrupt over a period of 2 years. The 4 largest coal companies in the US all went bankrupt between 2013 and 2015. Natural gas had a lot to do with that, but now renewables are starting to disrupt gas as well as coal. So electricity is going to get cheap, but it's not the only way that we use energy. We also use it to move our goods around and move ourselves around. But I think Sheikh Yamani, who was a Saudi oil minister during the last oil crisis, was right. So the Stone Age didn't end for a lack of stone. Right? What does that mean? The Stone Age ended because we invented bronze tools that were just technologically superior to stone. And he's warning his fellow princes that the world is going to invent an alternative to oil, and you better be ready. And he was right.